Have you ever had someone show up in your life at exactly the right moment, only to realize later they were maybe meant to be a chapter, not the whole entire book? Because today's story is about the fastest relationship I ever fell into. A relationship that felt like a lifetime during one of the strangest years of our lives. It had beach days, adventures, jokes, 6 weeks where I generally thought, oh, maybe this is someone I could be with. And then real life happened. Because sometimes the hardest lessons don't come from the relationships that are obviously wrong from the beginning. Sometimes they come from the ones that feel right until you realize you were falling with a version of someone that only existed under vacation and work trip conditions. So today we're talking about fast connections, the difference between chemistry and compatibility, and the moment you realize love shouldn't feel like a project you're managing, because we have too many of them at work already.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome back to the podcast. She's been through some engineering shit with your host, Christine, where we keep unlearning all of the outdated career and life advice we never asked for, but somehow managed to absorb anyway. This podcast is about the messy lessons, unforgettable realizations, workplace chaos, career pivots, and life experiences that teach us more than any textbook in engineering school ever could. So grab your coffee, your emotional support beverage of choice, and let's get into today's story. Have you ever met someone who shows up in your life at the exact moment you need them, and then somewhere along the way you realize they may have just been a very well-timed guest appearance? That's what this story is about. The fastest relationship I ever fell into, and one of the quickest I ever had to walk away from. The year was 2020, which feels like forever ago. And how did we survive that? It's really wild when I think back of COVID and just how collectively people got through it. It was wild. The world was shut down. Everyone was in isolation. Nobody knew what day it was anymore. Honestly, half the time I wasn't even sure it was just Tuesday or another day in the never-ending March. And then in late March, early April, I met, we'll call him Jacob. He was fun, genuinely funny, and made everything feel lighter during a year when everything felt unbelievably heavy. We met on Tinder, which was like... At that point, I had broken up with my long-term boyfriend the year prior, and it was an engagement that I broke up too. And I was experimenting with online dating, all the apps, Hinge, Tinder, obviously, Bumble, all the other, whatever the fuck the other ones are called. And I was socializing, I was out and about, I was like drinking a little bit more than I normally did. And then COVID happened. So then this one day in late March, early April, I met this guy named Jacob. We'll leave his actual name out for privacy purposes. We clicked instantly. Not like a love at first sight, because I don't personally believe in that. But I felt like he had a similar quirky and like silly, fun, fresh humor similar to mine. And the connection that feels like it was a lifeline during a time when the world was falling apart. A few weeks later, I told him, hey, I'm going on a at least 6-week trip to San Diego for work, because even though the world was extremely chaotic, the military, it's business as usual for them, and there was a ship that was getting ready for deployment. and my colleagues and I needed to go out there for pre-deployment inspections and training that we were providing the sailors. So during COVID, 6 weeks didn't feel like just a regular work trip for me. It felt like I was moving to another planet. And when I told Jacob this, he said, I don't know, like, how am I going to go that long without seeing you? Instead of hearing that and saying, this might have been a red flag, like, are you trying to tell me that you want to date other people? Or are you saying that, like, you're just going to miss me? But my brain apparently said, perfect, let's make a major relationship decision based on a few weeks of knowing you. So I was like, fuck it. Do you want to come with me? Having someone familiar, even though I didn't really even know them, but just familiar enough beside me, felt safe. And honestly, in that moment, it felt exactly what I needed. He said yes. I said, why don't you just come out for a week? 1 week became 2, 2 became 3, and suddenly we were practically living in my hotel room. Looking back, it was basically the relationship version of hitting fast forward. We skipped the normal dating phase and jumped straight into couple mode. We didn't have the slow process of figuring each other out over months. We just jumped right into daily life together. And that's what helped me feel safe, quote unquote, because I was working crazy hours during, again, a really weird time. We had morning coffee together. We shared dinners. We went hiking. We played disc golf. We did beach days, swimming laps. I taught him how to swim laps. We built this tiny little life together and somehow managed to make 2020 feel almost normal. And during a year where everything felt uncertain, that felt huge to me. He was an entrepreneur, so he could work from anywhere. I was working long hours, but carving out time because I wanted this to work, because I wanted him there. I didn't want to lose him. I had work per diem, so I paid for most of our meals. I went to grocery store to pick up food because we had a little kitchenette in my hotel room. At the time, it felt generous. It was like, hey, I can do this, so why not? Looking back, that was probably one of those moments where I should have paid a little more attention. Not because paying for meals is inherently a problem. It wasn't about the money. It was about the pattern. When you're swept up in a new relationship, it's really easy to give without noticing when things start becoming uneven. And as women, we have a tendency to be real givers. You want to make things easier. You want to show someone that you care, even though that they're not really showing that to you. You want to believe that the effort you're putting in is going to be matched, and it wasn't. And sometimes you don't realize that there's an imbalance until you really become a lot more exhausted. From the outside, everything looked fine. But work trips and quote-unquote vacations aren't real life. When we got home, something shifted. Or maybe the version of him I knew in San Diego just didn't come home with us. He started smoking a lot of weed, and he had done that when we met, but then he stopped because he wanted to be kind of match my somewhat like healthier lifestyle, and I was really into clean eating and exercise, and he stopped smoking weed. He also started drinking a lot, and slowly the person I spent 6 weeks building memories and doing fitness and clean eating and all that didn't really feel like the same person anymore. One night we went out to dinner in South Philly. Before I had even arrived, he had already been drinking, and he kept ordering liquor infused drinks throughout our dinner. And on the walk back, he was stumbling. Then he stepped into traffic and a car was coming. I grabbed him and pulled him back. And in that moment, something inside of me just started snapping into clarity. I was like, why should I be pulling your ass back from incoming traffic? That's not cute. That's not a relationship. I am like literally taking care of you, and you're a grown ass adult. When you're constantly worried about whether someone is okay, you stop feeling like a partner and start feeling like a safety monitor. And that isn't a role anyone really signs up for or should sign up for in a relationship. Soon after, he told me he couldn't spend as much time with me anymore. And at the time, I was really actually struggling with my mental health and needed some support, consistency, and someone who wanted to show up while I do some pretty intensive therapy. And he was telling me that he couldn't. Then my birthday came around. I had family and friend gatherings, people who wanted to celebrate with me. This was my 30th birthday. And he told me he could maybe commit to an hour or two. And that's when I also had another sign. It wasn't about my birthday. It wasn't about one dinner. It wasn't about family things. It was about effort. When someone wants to build a life with you or start slowly building a life with you, you don't feel like you're fighting for leftover time. You don't feel like you're asking someone to fit you into the cracks of their schedule. A few days later, I called him and ended it. There wasn't a dramatic fight. There wasn't any screaming. There wasn't any movie-style breakup when someone throws a drink across the room and storms out. Just a realization that whatever we had in San Diego wasn't something we could recreate at home. And honestly, I think he was slowly starting to push me away and didn't have the guts to break up with me. I think he was waiting for me to do the dirty work. That relationship taught me something I'll never forget. Shared experiences can create incredible closeness, but closeness isn't the same thing as compatibility. Sometimes 6 amazing weeks can hide 6 months of problems waiting underneath. And sometimes the hardest part isn't realizing that someone has changed. It's realizing you may have only known the one trip version of someone. The version who exists when life is exciting. Everyone is relaxed, and there are no real responsibilities. Even though I was definitely not relaxed on that trip. I was freaking the motherfucking out because I was working like a crazy person. If you've ever fallen fast, moved too quickly, or confused chemistry with compatibility, you are not alone. And if you have a STEM story, workplace lesson, career mistake, leadership moment, or a time when you said, nope, not today, I want to hear it. Call or leave a voicemail at 267-281-3633. One more time, that's 267-281-3633. This podcast isn't just about my experiences. It's about creating space for more voices, perspectives, and stories from STEM and beyond. Because we are all constantly debugging something: our careers, our relationships, expectations, beliefs about what success is for us. All right, that's today's episode. Catch you in the next one, where we keep unlearning all the outdated career and life advice we never asked for, but somehow absorbed anyway.